Hello and welcome to Newsweek South Asia, your one-stop destination for in-depth analysis of security challenges, regional conflicts, and the evolving threat of terrorism. Let's take a look at the headlines first. Indian paratrooper killed in Kishtwar encounter with Jaish terrorists. Search operations continue. LET commander admits Indian strike destroyed Murid ke headquarters in Operation Sindoor. And Afghanistan's hunger crisis worsened by winter and aid cuts. India's counter-terror grid in Jammu and Kashmir has once again come under fire from Pakistan-backed terror groups operating from across the line of control. In the rugged forests of Kishtwar, Indian soldiers confronted heavily armed terrorists in a high-risk operation that underscores both the evolving threat from across the border and the Indian Army's uncompromising resolve to neutralize it. The encounter has now claimed the life of a brave paratrooper, even as security forces continue tightening the noose around infiltrators linked to Pakistan-backed terror outfits. The report.
7 soldiers were initially injured when Indian Army teams came under sudden and indiscriminate fire during a counter-terror operation in the Chhatru area of Kishtwar district. The operation, launched around noon based on specific intelligence inputs, brought troops face to face with 2 to 3 foreign terrorists holed up in the dense and hostile terrain of the region. According to officials, the terrorists believed to be linked to Pakistan-based Jaish-e-Mohammed opened fire and lobbed grenades in a desperate attempt to break the security cordon.
Approximately there are still around 70 to 80 of these terrorists who are in the hills over there. And these are not infiltrated recently, but these are the ones, the old ones who have taken shelter over there. The Kishtwar encounter demonstrates that when the hideout was busted, these people had a lot of foodstuffs, plus they had cooking material, plus they had even the gas cylinders, which shows that they were being actively helped by the overground, underground workers over there who have helped them stock up for the winters. So this is a very big, I would say, thing to know that the overground, underground workers are still helping these people over there who have taken shelter. This is the nexus that has to be broken by the armed forces and the security forces, and they are at it. Sooner or later, all these 70 odd who are there taking shelter in the hills would be eliminated.
Indian troops responded with precision and restraint, ensuring the injured were evacuated swiftly even as the firefight continued. The operation, code-named Operation Thrashy 1, is being led by the Army's White Knight Corps in close coordination with Jammu and Kashmir Police and the Central Reserve Police Force. Contact with terrorists was established in the general area of Sonar, northeast of Chhatru, during a deliberate search operation forming part of intensified joint counter-terror exercises. Advanced surveillance tools, including drones and sniper dogs, have been deployed to dominate the terrain and prevent any escape routes, an approach reflecting India's increasingly tech-driven counter-terror doctrine.
Counter-terrorism strategy and our grid system has been very robust. It is the success of this grid system and counter-terrorism strategy that these terrorists have been forced to take shelter in the hills, from the plains, from the villages that they were doing earlier. Therefore, what has happened is now to track them down, Indian Army and the security forces are having extensive use of drones, because in the hilly regions and in the mountain tops, it is very difficult for human surveillance to carry on. And drones and even helicopters are the best modes, because aerial surveillance is the best. And this is what the security forces are doing. Apart from that, they are also using satellites tracking, and all-out effort is being made to ensure that all these terrorists that have taken shelter in these hills are eliminated in the hills itself.
As the operation entered its second day, the Indian Army confirmed that the paratrooper critically injured during the grenade attack succumbed to his wounds. Paying tribute, the White Knight Corps described the fallen Havildar's death as a supreme sacrifice, noting that he displayed exceptional courage and gallantry while responding to hostile fire under extreme conditions. The army leadership has reiterated that the sacrifice will not go unanswered and that operation will continue until the area is completely sanitized for terrorists. This encounter marks the third such gun battle in the Jammu region this year, following earlier clashes in the Kamad and Najot forests of Kathua district earlier this month. The spike in encounters highlights a renewed push by Pakistan-based handlers to reactive terror networks south of the Pir Panjal range. Security agencies say these attempts are driven by desperation as sustained Indian counter-terror pressure has severely degraded terror infrastructure across the border.
See, Pakistan has been trying to send in the infiltrators across the line of control in Rajouri Poonch areas, but it has not succeeded so far because the entire area now has been put under a grid system which is very, very robust. I will not go into the details of what all we are using, but apart from thermal imaging and drones and other satellite things, even the fencing has been strengthened, and it is very difficult for the terrorists to infiltrate. We have seen in the recent past, moment the terrorist tries to infiltrate, he is eliminated there at the line of control or in the no man's land, or what they do is after they are discovered and there is a retaliatory firing from the Indian Army, they run back to their launch pads.
With Republic Day approaching, Indian forces have intensified operations across forest belts and infiltration corridors to ensure peaceful celebrations. The message from New Delhi is unambiguous. Terrorism emanating from across the border will be confronted decisively, and every attempt to destabilize Jammu and Kashmir will be met with force, intelligence dominance, and unwavering resolve.
A rare public admission from within Pakistan's terror establishment has reinforced India's long-standing position on cross-border terrorism. Hafiz Abdul Rauf, a senior commander of Lashkar-e-Taiba, has acknowledged that Operation Sindoor caused extensive damage to the terror group's principal facility in Muridke. The statement lends direct confirmation to New Delhi's assessment that the operation decisively targeted and dismantled core terror infrastructure operating from Pakistani soil. A report.
इस मुरीद में 6 और 7 मई को जो हुआ ये मस्जिद आज जहां हम नहीं बैठ सके वो खत्म हो गई गिर गई.
Addressing a gathering, Hafiz Abdul Rauf admitted that Lashkar-e-Taiba's Markaz-e-Taiba base in Pakistan's Muridke was destroyed during Indian strikes carried out on the night of May 6 to 7, 2025. Describing the operation as a very big attack, Rauf stated that the site had collapsed completely and was no longer usable. The acknowledgement marks one of the clearest confirmations from within Lashkar-e-Taiba that India's military action struck its intended target with precision. Rauf is not a peripheral figure. As Lashkar's operational commander, he has been directly involved in the training and deployment of terrorists from Pakistan Army-backed launch pads in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. He had earlier led funeral prayers for terrorists killed in the Indian strikes, images of which circulated widely at the time. His latest remarks remove any remaining ambiguity about the nature of the Muridke facility, long projected as a religious complex but identified by intelligence agencies as a key hub for radicalization, training and logistical coordination.
Hafiz Abdul Rauf's admission about attack on Muridke headquarters. This is a significant validation of effectiveness of Operation Sindoor. in dismantling the ecosystem of terror that was existing in Pakistan. Because in the wildest of the dream, they never thought that the same place where they had been sitting and making plans how to bleed India 1,000 cuts will ever be targeted. And it's also a big embarrassment for Pakistan Army, because reason being, if you look at the Pakistan Army, it is predominantly Punjabis. And this attack was carried out in Muridke, and Muridke is in Lahore. That means India was able to hit heart of Pakistan, that is Muridke in Lahore. That way India was able to send a message loud and clear that if you are going to hit us, we are going to hurt you most by hitting you harder. And this time we saw that how India was able to carry out an attack with precision. They fired 22 missiles, in which 9 of the terror den, which included the Muridke headquarters of Lashkar-e-Toiba, was completely decimated and demolished.
Operation Sindoor was launched in response to the April 2025 terror attack in Pahalgam, where 26 civilians were killed in an assault carried out by Lashkar operatives using the proxy identity of the Resistance Front. Investigations later established that the attackers were equipped with Chinese-manufactured weapons and equipment, pointing to an increasingly sophisticated supply chain sustaining Pakistan-based terror groups. Beyond acknowledging damage, Rauf's statements carried broader implications. He asserted that Pakistan offers what he termed open freedom for jihad, and suggested that recruitment and training of terrorists faces minimal obstacles. His remarks align with India's long-held position that terrorist groups operate with institutional tolerance and in some cases, direct backing. Rauf also praised China for its support to Pakistan during the heightened tensions following the Pahalgam attack, claiming the provision of intelligence assistance, comments that add a geopolitical dimension to the evolving security landscape.
If we talk about the Operation Sindoor, they did not only provide the material, but there was also a support from the Chinese side. So it was a Chinese participation, and that's really a matter of concern. But it's one thing is quite clear, that what India had been saying, now it's for the world to see. The China is also providing the support to that ecosystem of terror. Off and on, you must have seen that many of those terrorists getting caught or killed when they cross over to this side. Many of those Chinese rifles as well as the pistols are being recovered. That clearly indicates that there is a support, one, from the China. Obviously, Chinese army presence is there.
The admission comes amid a broader pattern of exposure within Pakistan's terror ecosystem. Last week, open threats issued by Masood Azhar, the head of Jaish-e-Mohammed, claimed the availability of thousands of suicide bombers. Indian security assessments viewed those statements as reflective of pressure on terror networks following Operation Sindoor. During the operation, Indian forces carried out coordinated precision strikes against multiple terror camps across Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, killing more than 100 terrorists. Key facilities belonging to both Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed were destroyed.
This is completely their rattled, because reason being that in wildest of their dream, they never thought that these nerve center or the terror headquarters, whether in Bawalpur or Muridke, will ever be hit by India. Because for the last 3 decades, we have seen that India was following the policy that was a defensive policy. They used to come, they used to carry out attack, and India was only responding to those attacks. There used to be a knee-jerk response from the Indian side. But now there is a paradigm shift in the military strategy, where India has proved after Uri attack that if you are going to hit us, we are going to hit you harder, which is where it is going to hurt you most. And that's what India has done.
For New Delhi, the significance of this admission is clear. Operation Sindoor marked a decisive escalation in India's approach, moving beyond deterrence to direct disruption of terrorist infrastructure. With Indian leadership reiterating that such operations will continue as long as terrorism persists, Hafiz Abdul Rauf's remarks represent an unusual moment of transparency from within a system that has long operated behind denial.
Afghanistan's humanitarian crisis is intensifying as winter deepens across the country. Years of conflict, economic collapse, prolonged drought, and mass deportations from neighboring countries are now colliding with severe cuts in international aid. Humanitarian agencies warn that millions of Afghans face crisis-level hunger, with women and children the worst affected, and the situation expected to deteriorate further in the coming months.
Across Afghanistan, winter has brought freezing temperatures and shrinking livelihoods to a population already struggling to survive. Daily wage work has dried up, food stocks are running low, and humanitarian assistance is failing to keep pace with growing needs. An estimated 45% of Afghanistan's population, around 21.9 million people, will require humanitarian assistance in the coming year, according to the Afghanistan Humanitarian Needs and Response Plan. More than 17.5 million people have been prioritized for emergency support, with over one-third of the population projected to face crisis-level or worse food insecurity during the 2025-2026 lean season as defined by the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification. This marks a sharp deterioration from last year, forcing families to survive by depleting essential livelihood assets. The crisis has been compounded by one of the world's fastest growing returnee emergencies. Around 5 million people have returned to Afghanistan this year, including more than 2.6 million deported from Iran and Pakistan following tightened migration policies and deteriorating protection conditions. Many returnees have been pushed back into districts already facing poverty, drought, food shortages, and limited access to basic services, further overwhelming local capacities, particularly around Kabul.
پس مجبوری از بدبختی فهمید اینجا زندگی میکنیم. اگه از واسه ما چیزی پورا باشه که میکنیم. ما فهمیدیم دل ما هر چی میخواه که بکنیم. حالا اینجا باد میشه، باران میشه، فهمیدی چی میشه، خب مجبور هستیم بچه خود بغل خود میگیریم، زد باشان زندگی میکنیم. بچه گریان میکنن که بابا سرده، یخه، اینجوریه اونجوریه، خب مجبور هستیم میگیم باشیم چیکار بکنیم.
Food insecurity has also been worsened by ongoing drought. Nearly 80% of rain-fed wheat crops have failed in several regions, leaving families without food reserves for the winter months. At the same time, sanitation and hygiene conditions are deteriorating. Around 25% of households rely on unimproved water sources, while 37% lack access to soap, increasing the risk of disease outbreaks alongside hunger. Health facilities across the country are reporting a sharp rise in malnutrition cases, particularly among children. Clinics treating acute malnutrition say patient numbers have doubled due to the influx of returnees and the collapse of household incomes.
نسبت به سالهای قبل که مهاجرین اینجا نبوده، نصف از اون تعداد مریضای ما زیاد شده و در این منطقه که ما کلینیک داریم مهاجرین پاکستان نسبت به ایران زیادتر هستند و اکثریتشان حتی خانه ندارن.
For families already affected by unemployment and economic collapse, treatment offers only temporary relief.
2 سال است که ما اینجا میم به علت سوء تغذیه متوسط است. دیگه علت از اینکه بچه ما دچار سوء تغذیه شد، اولین مشکلش مشکلات اقتصادی، بیکاری، دیگه درست رسیدگی کردی نمیتونیم به غذای زیاد.
While needs are rising, humanitarian resources are shrinking. The World Food Programme warns it is not sufficiently funded to respond to the spiraling crisis. For 2026, humanitarian partners require $1.71 billion, a 29% reduction compared to 2025, even as they aim to reach more people through sharper prioritization and efficiency gains.
1/3 of the population are experiencing acute hunger, and that is 3 million more people than last year. So the situation is dramatically worse than last year. What we're finding is a confluence of factors. There's a drought in the north, malnutrition is rising exponentially. We have the return of 2.5 million people this year to Afghanistan, the forced return. All these things are coming together to create a perfect storm for Afghanistan.
At aid distribution sites, supplies remain limited and queues long. For some families, assistance has come for the first time after months of hunger.
یعنی می دفعه اوله که دنمی گوشه بیشه ها که امتر گوشنه و تشنه خواهی کس از ما این صدای منه نمیشنوه دیگه. من موری در یک دروازه که یک حق خداش برای از بید یک 4 طفل دختر داریم دیگه، سرپرست نداریم، زمین نداریم، کارگر نداریم، امتر افتیده ایدیم گوشه بیشه ها. یعنی من دفعه که اولین باره که من کمک میگیرم خیلی خوشحالم دیگه.
Humanitarian agencies warn that without urgent international funding and sustained support, Afghanistan's hunger crisis will deepen further through winter. With drought, displacement, and aid cuts converging, millions of Afghans remain at risk of sliding deeper into hunger and malnutrition.
Even after 21 long years, the wounds of the devastating earthquake remained unhealed in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Rehabilitation remains a cruel illusion for thousands of victims abandoned by the state. Billions were sanctioned, yet hundreds of projects are incomplete or defunct. Children are forced to study under the open sky, while so-called satellite towns in Muzaffarabad exist without water or basic services. This is not neglect by chance, but a chronic neglect and a complete failure of governance. We have a report.
Years after the devastating earthquake, life has still not returned to normal for thousands in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Temporary arrangements have turned into a permanent reality as rehabilitation drags on endlessly. Development projects launched with much fanfare remain incomplete, while essential services are missing on the ground. The impact is most visible in the lives of children and displaced families who continue to endure hardship, uncertainty, and neglect, waiting for relief that was promised but never fully delivered.
जम्मू कश्मीर जो आज से 2 दिहाइयां कबल यानी 21वां साल जा रहा है ज़लज़ला को, जो ज़लज़ला यहाँ आया, वफाकी हुकूमत ने यहाँ बहाली के हवाले से एक अदारा बनाया ईरा, और जिसने कमोबेश 7,500 से ज़ायद मंसूबों का आगाज़ किया, उसका प्लान किया और तामीर नौ का ऐलान किया। मुख्तलिफ स्कूल, कॉलेजेस, सेहत आमा के हॉस्पिटल्स और सरकारी अमला जो भी थी, और आम आवाम की बहाली के हवाले से घरों की तामीर। इस वक्त ईरा ने जो आज़ाद जम्मू कश्मीर में कमोबेश 4,000 मनसूबे मुकम्मल किए, और तकरीबन 3,500 से या 4,000 के करीब जो मनसूबे बाकी बचते हैं, उन पर कुछ मनसूबे जारी थे, इब्तदाई मराहिल में थे, कुछ दरमियानी मराहिल में थे और कुछ तकमीली मराहिल में थे, और कुछ को शुरू नहीं किया जा सका। लेकिन जो मनसूबे शुरू हुए उन पर अरबों का काम, अरबों रुपए खर्च हुए, लेकिन बदकिस्मती से वो तकमील के मरहले तक ना पहुँच सके।
Poor planning and official apathy have turned promised rehabilitation into prolonged suffering. Families meant to be relocated to newly built satellite towns remain stuck in uncertainty as these settlements lack even the most basic facilities. Despite years of construction and massive public spending, essentials like water have not been provided, making daily life impossible. As a result, many affected families are unable to move in, exposing how flawed planning and negligence continue to deny earthquake victims a dignified and sustainable future.
मुजफ्फराबाद में शहरियों के लिए जो जगह रहने के काबिल नहीं रही, 2 सैटेलाइट टाउन नंगरपुरा और ठोठा मॉडल विलेज, इसके लिए प्लानिंग की गई। सैटेलाइट टाउन नंगरपुरा में इस वक्त गुज़श्ता 5 सालों से अब लोग वहाँ अपने घर बना रहे हैं, लेकिन बदकिस्मती आप देख लीजिए, पानी का मामला अभी तक हल नहीं हुआ। यानी कि आप यूँ समझ लीजिए कि अरबों रुपए उस मंसूबे पर सरकार के खर्च हुए, और तो सड़कें बनी, उसकी गलियाँ बनी, उसकी दीगर चीज़ें आ गई, लेकिन शजरकारी का मामला है। यानी हुकूमत अगर हर मौसम, जो बरसाती मौसम है, मौसम बहार है, उसमें अगर 10-10 दरख्त भी लगाती तो आज इन 2 सालों में, 10 सालों में काफ़ी अच्छा वहाँ सब्ज़ा हो जाता। इसके अलावा पानी बुनियादी ज़रूरत है। पानी की कनेक्शन ना होने से आबादी वहाँ कैसे रहेगी?
Beyond stalled rehabilitation, daily life remains a struggle for residents across the region. Overcrowded cities face severe traffic congestion, broken roads, and poor urban planning. Basic cleanliness is neglected, drainage systems are choked, and public services remain overstretched. With no effective governance or long-term vision, population pressure continues to rise, worsening living conditions. The absence of sustainable development has left people battling hardship every day, highlighting a deep governance failure that continues to impact ordinary lives.
And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Newsweek South Asia. We'll be back next week with more news, views, and analysis from the subcontinent. Meanwhile, do keep writing to us at nwsa@anin.com. This is Shivangi Mishra signing off on behalf of the entire team of Newsweek South Asia. Goodbye and take care.